In this video, I'm gonna share you the game that I have just played that got this percent of accuracy. I mean, this is so crazy. Let me walk you through it and tell you how you can do the same. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. So to say that I was upset after this game is to say absolutely nothing, because I'm playing as white, I'm playing against a 2200 rated player, and I absolutely wanted to win, but I had zero chances to do it. So we had this opening, which is called the Semi-Slav. Very solid opening for black. If you're looking for one, definitely take a look at that one. I mean, this is so hard to play against it. And here is the key moment already. I'm playing b3 here, just wanting to develop my bishop, and everything is normal. The main line here is b6, pretty much everybody is doing it. But my opponent, she started to think for like, I don't know, half an hour here on this just one move number 8, and then she plays e5, which was a complete surprise for me. I mean, when I was thinking, why would she think so long, I thought that that must be something like e5, and then I started to calculate, and I'm thinking like, oh my god, this is really possible, and I have no idea what to do. And yeah, this is basically what costed me the most problems, that I couldn't really get anything out of it. So here, all of the pawns and the pieces are on the board, but like 10 moves later, everybody is going to be gone. Just the queen and one bishop would be left. This is so crazy. You can't imagine this looking at this position. So let's see how it happened. I'm taking on e5. Well, I have to, because otherwise this pawn goes to e4, and that would be a horrible turn of events. For example, bishop b2 is a huge mistake. The engine says it's just a little bit of advantage for black, but it's for the engine. From a human perspective, this is like a dream to achieve, because now all of your pieces are coming. You have a free attack here on the queen side, on the king side, and white has absolutely nothing, zero threats, zero ideas. You cannot allow that. So this is absolutely unacceptable. And the main problem is, of course, if I take here, now if black takes, this is perfect. I'm basically just winning a pawn on d5. You cannot do that. But once again, the same story happens, e4, and I don't have time. I was trying to calculate whether I can sacrifice like that, but it seemed to me it's not enough. Yes, I get 3 pawns, which is an equivalent for the knight, but it rather applies to the endgame. In the opening, in the middle game, pieces are more important than pawns, because, well, in the endgame you can promote your pawn into a queen. In the opening, you cannot do that. In the opening, it matters how many attacking pieces you and your opponent have, and my opponent definitely has one more, and this is a problem. Now this attack is coming, and I pretty much don't have any defenders against it, so this is very bad news. In fact, engine says bishop takes h2 is winning immediately. Not an easy move to find, but you know, this is very bad news. So I cannot do that. I took here on e5, knight takes, and now I'm taking on d5. But the problem is, once again, if my opponent takes back, I'm winning the pawn, I'm happy. But my opponent takes on f3 first, and now instead of taking on d5, which would be stupid, she plays bishop e5. She just pins my knight, attacks my knight, and gets ready for knight takes d5. And there is literally nothing I can do. So I played here bishop to b2. I was calculating this crazy line starting with bishop a3, and the engine confirms this is the best chance I get. But once again, I wasn't happy with it, because after rook c1, the bishop goes back, and yes, I can take here on c6, then I can take here on f8, queen takes, and I can even take on c6, although the engine says I should play queen d2 for some reason, but c6 is not gonna get away from me, I'm gonna take it, then I have rook and 2 pawns for 2 pieces, and just if you do the calculation, that would be 7 pawns against 6 pawns. That is an advantage, but from a practical point of view, those bishops are monster. Together with the knight, they are just attacking my queen, and once again I was really scared to get this position. I guess humanly it's much easier to play as black, because you just attack, you just bring off all of your pieces and create threats, and for me it's much more difficult to deal with all of those threats. So I wasn't happy about this position. That is why instead of bishop a3, I played here the move bishop to b2, but then knight takes d5, and basically my opponent equalized. The only chance I have to get at least something is to take on d5. Well, otherwise I might be in trouble, because this is a pin, this queen is coming to f6 potentially, and I mean, this is not so great. Or just exchange everything, and then the pawn structure is very solid. I don't have any chances. So I took here on d5 so that my opponent at least gets an isolated pawn. And here, yeah, probably I should have just continued the development normally. But I was thinking like either right now I'm creating some threats for my opponent, or she's gonna stabilize, bring all of your pieces, and this is not possible for me to get anything. Okay, queen to h5. I'm attacking the bishop and the pawn behind it. So it's kind of provoking the move f6 because you cannot, like if you play rook e8, I thought this is good for me because now I'm playing rook d1 and you don't have the opportunity to play this key move bishop to e6 because the bishop is going to be hanging. So I thought this is kind of an achievement. But my opponent played f6 and I thought, well, this is already good for me because there are some weaknesses now on the light squares and maybe I could use it somehow. But no chances at all, just bishop goes to e6. And my hope was here to play e4, and thank God I didn't do that, because it turns out it's really bad for me because of this move queen to c8, attacking the knight. This is an obvious threat, but also threatening bishop to g4. And suddenly my queen and my rook are not really well placed. And I was really hoping for knight takes d5 here to work, because you cannot take there, knight e7 wins the queen. But the problem is there is bishop takes d5. And now, once again, my hope was just to take the bishop. If you take back, I won a pawn, I am a happy camper. But the problem is bishop goes to f7 with the tempo, then I'm losing the bishop and the game. So knight takes d5 doesn't work, and then I'm in trouble because the knight is really hanging. I don't know, I probably should play rook d to c1 to avoid this problem, but now just queen to e8, and because of this pin, I still cannot win anything, and in the end of the day, I'm gonna suffer against the pair of bishops. So I'm happy I didn't do that. I played rook d3. Also, I was already low on time because once my opponent played that move e5, I was starting to think like for 40 minutes just on one move, trying to understand where is the advantage. I know that I have prepared that move, and e5 I haven't seen it at all, so there must be something. But the reality is there is absolutely nothing there. That is so surprising. Queen e8, I don't want to exchange the queens, of course, so I played queen e2, and I'm really attacking the d5 pawn because the bishop is protected. But my opponent says, I don't care, I'm gonna just exchange that bishop for a knight, and now we have opposite colors bishops, and I'm gonna have a fortress, and that's exactly what she did. The only task left is to exchange the rooks, and then we are good to go. But I thought at least I have some initiative here. I mean, my queen is more active, my bishop is more active, this bishop has to be there to protect this weak pawn, and so that all gives me some optimism. The engine, like always, doesn't care, 0, 0, 0, no chances whatsoever, and that's exactly what happened in the game, because even though there is one weakness, it's a very important principle in chess to understand the principle of two weaknesses. One is not enough, because your opponent just puts all of his pieces, queen d7, now both the queen and the bishop are protecting it, and then if you don't have another weakness, another target to attack, then you don't have any chances, because, yeah, how are you supposed to win? And I don't have another one. I thought the second one should be to attack the king, to create threats against the king, but the problem is this queen on d7, it just protects absolutely everything from one place, and I cannot do anything about it. Of course, if I ever exchange the queens, that's an immediate draw, opposite colors bishops, like no chance. With equal amounts of pawns, never ever is possible to win. So I was jumping here back and forth with the queen. I thought that I should make progress once I push those pawns, but I couldn't do it immediately because I was afraid of some ideas, like if I play b4, for example, here, or some ideas like d4, and my opponent gets rid of this a very annoying isolated pawn, takes on a2, and then I have the isolated pawn actually, so I might even end up being worse. So I thought I need to find a smart way, maybe block with the bishop and then push the pawns. But at the same time, I should be careful because one day, and that's exactly what happened at some point, my opponent played queen to c2. Okay, we just shuffled around back and forth for so many moves. Imagine how cool it would be to play chess without ever having opening troubles again. What if I told you I could teach you all openings you will ever need in just 10 days? You get lifetime access to more than 110 pure value video tutorials, almost 100 practical tasks to apply your knowledge immediately into practice, 30 plus bonus videos to dive 10 times deeper, as well as private community where all questions you might ever have are answered daily. Get the $200 limited time discount with the link in the description and forget about all opening pain once and for all. So here, after I played king to h2, my opponent played queen to c2, and I almost had zero time at this point, like just 1 minute or something. And so it was pretty scary for me. If I start losing those pawns, that might end up being very, very dangerous. But thank God I found a simple way to deal with the problem. I'm playing queen to g3, and now, yes, you can take, but then bishop f8, and there is suddenly no way to stop the checkmate because this queen is so offside and it cannot help. There are no checks because I removed my king. And yeah, you can play g5, but then the queen comes from this side, and yep, I'm not sure. It should be immediate checkmate somehow, or you lose a lot of pieces. Yeah, here I just take there, and if you take to f5, then bishop e7, then I take. Well, you can actually protect that, but queen comes to h7, king to e5, and yeah, very good sacrifice, and then the queen is going to be lost. So in every case, black cannot ever allow that and expect something good to happen out of it. So she just played queen to c8 without any real problems, and then I managed to make some progress here, pushed my pawns, but it doesn't help me because the reality doesn't change. My opponent has everything she needs on the light squares. Yes, I thought maybe this is a little bit of hope that the pawns are on the dark squares here, but it doesn't actually help because the king is securing this very important pawn. The queen is there to help as well, and so I don't have any chances. I once again remaneuvered the pieces back and forth till I finally played this move e4. I mean, this is the last key moment. Of course, I knew I don't have any chances, but at least I need to pose some problems to my opponent to, create a challenge for her. And so I played e4, and here you need to be a little bit careful. First of all, you cannot take. Well, at least that's some progress. Of course, it's deadly equal according to the engine, but now I have 2 pawns against 1. Yeah, probably after bishop c4, I cannot really hope for anything at all. But I mean, at least I have an extra pawn now. That's a little bit a different story. But the problem is queen to g6 is the right move. And now if I take bishop takes, nothing helps. My idea was to play e5, and that would work. Once again, make some progress if I can exchange those pawns, at least maybe making the king more vulnerable, having 3 against 2, maybe start pushing my pawns, even though that could be dangerous as my king is going to be naked. But all of that doesn't matter because my opponent has an easy way to exchange the queens. I went thinking after the game, maybe I could have played queen to b8, because during the game I thought that's not possible, but let's try to analyze it together. I'm taking it on b7. I mean, in the analyze you can do whatever you want, but during a real game that feels a little bit scary to allow something like that. Well, of course I have king to g1, but that's just a perpetual, so the only move for me to play is g3. And then I was thinking, okay, now queen f3, bishop to f5, bishop to e4, and I'm in huge trouble. And I would be happy to play bishop f8, but of course the f2 is hanging with a check, so I cannot do that. I'm gonna just lose. And actually, yeah, the engine says it's very difficult position. The only move that is maintaining the equality is g4, but good luck playing that. This is so crazy. My idea was to play queen to a7, and saying that now I'm protecting the pawn on f2, and if you play bishop f5, continuing the plan, then I'm playing bishop to f8 and I'm checkmating you because there is no way to protect the pawn with the queen. Even that is a simple draw because of bishop d7, and when I take, you just take on f2. But as you could have noticed, there is just a checkmate here after queen to a7. Can you pause the video for a second and find it? It's black to move and checkmate in a few moves. You just need to find the idea. Okay, I hope you found it. It's relatively simple because it starts with captures. Remember, checks, captures, threats. Bishop takes h3, brilliant move, immediately appears here because, well, it's checkmate threat in one move, I have to take, but then you provoke the king to go forward, and the king forward is not secured. So here the checkmate shouldn't be difficult. Either h5 or f5 both work. because if the king takes, then queen to e4, checkmate. And the king, yeah, has nowhere to hide, king to f4, just the same checkmate. So thank God I was reasonable enough here not to go crazy and lose this game, and just play d5, the last question where the queen goes. I guess queen g5, I mean, I would choose queen g5. This is the simplest. My opponent played queen e4, which is at least creating some weakness here. But of course, when you have opposite colors bishops, you basically don't care about anything. This is not possible to win. Just absolutely not possible. And the last trick here is really attacking this g2 pawn. Of course, the more pawns you exchange, the simpler it gets. But at least I thought, okay, I'm going to play f3 now, and maybe this pawn is going to be a weakness. But at the same time, that's a very dangerous pawn, because if you like miss a moment or two, then it's going to promote into the queen, and you have some bad news to happen. So yeah, I'm attacking the pawn here, pushing my pawn, but my opponent is doing everything absolutely correctly, putting the pawns on the light square. Light squares, if you have the light squares bishop, then your opponent cannot do anything. You can always protect it, and this dark squares bishop cannot attack it. So f5, h5, and that's game over, because after g5, you basically don't need to do anything at all. Just go back and forth with the bishop. Once I attack the b7 pawn, you just protect it. Or frankly, you can even lose this pawn on b7, then you can even lose the pawn on e2 and just go back and forth with the bishop. There is no way to do anything about this king. This is how horrible those opposite colors bishops endgames are. I mean, it's just so sad. You have zero chances. And here we finally agreed to a draw. So this was it, a perfect game from both sides, quite a disappointment for me, but that's life. If your opponent doesn't make any mistakes, you don't have any chances. This is as simple as that. Of course, I should have created like more difficulties, finding more ways to challenge my opponent, and unfortunately I failed in that. So I'm gonna try to improve my opening repertoire to be able to pose those questions. But this is it. I hope you learned a lot. And in this video, you're gonna see, well, very frustrating game for me. I have played against the strongest opponent I have ever faced in classical chess, and that was a very painful experience. Nevertheless, you can learn so much out of it, so definitely take a look.